Welcome back for another battle report on the Lage Landen Liga. So this is a league that is being held throughout the Netherlands with people meeting up just one-to-one on a longer period of time to enable tournament play still in these corona conditions. So first we had a pool phase and I also participated in that, and luckily I got through. And then now we are going to continue with some knockout rounds. So there's a total of 32 players now that are competing to get into the finals and win the tournament there. So first round 16 players will fall off, second round 8 players, etc., until we have one winner. This is the army list that I've been using for this. So you pick an army list at the start of the season, and you also just are not allowed anymore to make any changes to the army list. You're not allowed to update it with any new released books. So if there's a new book that comes out, you still have to play with the old army list. That makes sense, of course. So I have a vampire count on zombie dragon. My first pool, I faced 3 gun lines basically, so this was a bit scary. But in the end, I managed to just land into the knockout rounds. And this time I'm facing off against Vermin Swarm. So in our pool there was already a Vermin Swarm player, and now it's again Vermin Swarm. But I must say that this Vermin Swarm list is way nicer than the one I played before. I think it's a list that is not necessarily optimized for tournament play. So the Plague Patriarch could have had the Putrid Perfection or Protection. And an Alchemist Alloy, for example. What else? Let me see. I don't really know the role of the footpaths in this army. Maybe it's to help with scoring issues. I don't know if the rotary guns are that worth it, because they tend to miss a lot because they're 4+ to hit with 9-inch short range. And I think double dreadmill is really good for Vermin Swarm, and double blade catapult the same. So I would ideally want to shave off some points somewhere, even though I wouldn't know where to do it. So these are the army lists. Here we have a picture of the army as I play it. So this is my Empire army that I've also tuned towards being able to play as vampire counts. A lot of people in the Netherlands have already seen it, but then again, this is just another picture of it. So the zombie dragon that I use is actually a heavily converted Pathfinder dragon. Well, the base is a Pathfinder dragon. The body is a corpse card that has been turned around. It has the tail of a high elf dragon, the plastic one, and it has a vampire riding on top. So this is, I guess, the model in my collection on which I converted the most. It was a pain to assemble, but once you get there, you end up with a nice model. So for deployment we played Frontline Clash, and the objective was capture the flags. I was quite happy with this objective because my opponent has the 2 units of footpaths that are easy units to pick up with scoring. So my opponent was able to, I was able to choose table side, and my opponent decided that I could deploy something first. And you have the Phantom Host in your army. They can move through the impossible terrain. Black Knights can also do that, so I kind of also could have put some Black Knights behind there. But I think Phantom Hosts are anyway a good pick to first put down on the table. The second thing you see me put down on the table is the blocks of skeletons. I was not gonna camp in the corner with the skeletons because I don't really want to do the one-on-one play. I like to play white with this army because I'm able to. So normally vampire counts aren't really able to play really wide because of the restricted march bubble of the BSB and low movement speed. Except for the independent pieces like the Varkalax and stuff, or the vampires on steeds. With this zombie dragon I have a commanding presence range of 24 inches, because I'm on a towering presence beast and I have the von Karstein bloodline, so I get twice a +6 inch on my commanding presence. So I've kind of covered the entire field with my commanding presence. And Yeah, you see at some point I drop the rest of my army in order to go first. My opponent still plays a bit of a gun line, but I kept the valuable pieces, or the pieces that are a little bit more prone to vulnerable to shooting to the end. And yeah, then I was still able to drop before my opponent dropped. So that was something that I really liked. On the left, you can see that I have the dire wolves. They are out of march rate of my dragon, and the Phantom Host is also out of march rate. So in this game, I put the dragon all the way on the flank. I could have played it more centrally to get a march rate on, but the dire wolves, they have Vanguard, which is not affected by this, and the Phantom Host, my plan was anyway to get them behind the hill the first turn. So that is why I ended up with the deployment as I have it now. And the Winged Reapers, they can still decide which direction they want to go. I get to Vanguard up with my wolves, and I get to get the first turn. So I think the dire wolves are quite a good choice against footpaths, because when I'm charging, I strike at the same time as my opponent. We both just have 4+ to hit, and I have 3+ to wound. He has 4+ to wound. I'm gonna have a charge. He's not gonna be steadfast because he's light troops. I thought actually, but they might actually be steadfast. I thought it was a good play anyway, because the discipline is quite low and the general is all the way on the other side. Whilst if I lose my dire wolves, I don't lose a scoring unit. If my opponent loses his footpaths, he does lose a scoring unit. So as you can see, the Spirit Hosts, they moved up a little bit. The Winged Reapers moved up behind the hill to get hard cover. So the Dreadmill could advance towards me. If he goes to the left, I don't see him, but I still see the Vermin, the Red Arms, and the Winged Reapers are a great counter against these Red Arms, because they'll just grind through, picking up another scoring unit. So for the objective play, the left flank is just an ideal setup for me, basically. And then on the right flank, I can just play my army against his army. Because on the left flank, if you count up the points, I have about 1,000 points there, 900 points. My opponent has about 400, has more points there, but right now I'm dominating that flank, and my opponent has to do something about that. If he doesn't do something about it, it's going to be a disadvantage battle on the right, because the house very clearly divides up his deployment, which is also why I chose to go on the side that I did. Yeah, so then the rest of my advance mostly consisted out of moving up the skeletons. I moved up the dragon all the way further up the flank to try and have the vermin demon less flexible on the flank. So I also targeted the vermin demon with reroll to hit and reroll to wound. Maybe I should have done this on the plague pendulum. Because that is at least a target that I can point, that I can lock somewhere, or that is not that good at dodging a dragon. But then again, if the pendulum is going to strike back against the pendulum, against the dragon, I'm going to get d6 plus 2 strength 5 auto hits, besides all of the other violence that comes out of the thing. And I don't know if the dragon's going to be too happy about that. So he does sacrifice then the potential of grinding through skeletons, if I can be charged with skeletons. But just the dragon on its own is not going to make it against the pendulum. So I need something more in that combat, preferably the Winged Reapers, but right now they're kind of occupied. So in my magic phase, I still managed to put 2 wounds on his vermin demon with my sniper spells. So that was a really great start. Because once the vermin demon goes down, the entire army kind of shatters, because they lose their discipline, and that is something that the vermin demon army really benefits from, this 18-inch discipline 9 bubble of the vermin demon. So otherwise, on the right, I still advanced up quite aggressively with my spectral hunters. They have hard target 1 now. So the Jezils will only hit them on 5+. The rotary gun has to move in order to get at long range. So then he is going to hit at 6s if he rolls 2d6, 7s if he rolls 3d6, and that's without any 6s being rolled. Well, the 3d6 has a higher chance to roll a 6, so that is why I counted that. So my opponent moves up as you can see. I'm quite happy about this. Like my skeletons can just keep the center occupied for quite a long time with all their parry and the ranks and the BSB nearby. I can do some raising on the skeletons. I tried to do it last turn, but that didn't happen, unfortunately. And my opponent basically gave away his Dreadmill to me in order to get a shot at the Winged Reapers. So I was really, really happy about that, because I can fly in, I strike first because of agility 4 goes to 5. And with my 15 attacks that hit on 3+, that wound on 4+, I should get like 5 wounds. With some magic support, I should be able to just clear it in one go. And if not, then I still will. He's outside of this general bubble. So I'll still break it, get an overrun into the Red Arms, which is actually my goal for this unit in this battle. I move up with my skeletons to make sure that not all of his Vermin Guard gets to strike. I move up the Phantom Hosts to buy me a turn, and I position my other skeletons so that I can get a counter charge if my opponent goes in. And I try to get my my Necromancer within 6 inches of all the skeleton units so that I can raise a bit more. So I have created the situation basically where my skeletons are not going to be wiped out by the Vermin Guard in one turn, and I feel in a good spot. I feel like the Vermin Demon is still just a big problem. It's going to remain a big problem for the rest of the game if I don't deal with it, and it has too many wounds for me to deal with it as quickly as I want. So it's gonna stick around anyway for 3 to 4 turns probably, at least. And it sucks up a lot of magic. So I cast some magic at it. I do 2 wounds at it, but my opponent saves the 2 of them. And yeah, the trouble with Avocation Occultism Snipes against such a model is that if the dice go right, then you get a lot of points in a very short time. If the dice go wrong, then your entire magic phase suffers. So ideally, I would have wanted to just focus on raising more skeletons, I think, just to prepare for the grind. On the left flank, it goes terribly wrong with the dire wolves because well, we strike at the same time. I only managed to kill 2, and my opponent manages to kill 5 or so, and then through the crumbling and lose another 3. And yeah, that didn't really go as planned. But on the other hand, I managed to clean up the Dreadmill without any repercussions. My opponent's footpaths, they flee away due to their low leadership. And I managed to get the overrun on the Red Arms. So that all went just well. Yeah, I have nothing to complain there really, other than the dire wolves that completely fluffed. But as I said before, that's not really a biggie because, well, his unit is a scoring unit. My unit isn't a scoring unit, so I don't actually care if the dire wolves are gonna die. Of course, it's 160 points that I lose. Alternatively, it's also it enables me to set up the charge for the Phantom Hosts next turn against the Footbats, and the Phantom Host will definitely grind the Footbats out. Yeah, that is what is going on. The Spectral Hunters very efficiently cleaned up the Jezils on the right and are now ready to move in for another charge. Spectral Hunters against Plague Disciples, I don't really know about that. I mean, I first get 6 toxic hits that are non-magical but still will result probably in a wound. Then my opponent gets to strike with his 12 attacks with Hatred Battle Focus, so that's 12 hits, probably, maybe even more. So that's going to be 10 wounds. It's non-magical, so it's going to be 3 or 4 wounds. So he has a total of 4 to 5 wounds. Then I get to strike. I strike at 3+. I wound at 3+. So I also probably get something like 4 wounds. But then the next round, he'll just kill me with the rest. That's probably what's going to happen. Because I get another 6 AP10 hits and another big amount of attacks. and he's immune to psychology, so I don't really benefit from the terror that I cause. I think it's a bad matchup for me to just throw away my unit against his. So I'd rather just put pressure on him so that he has to expose one of his flank to either my Black Knights or the Spectral Hunters. And yeah, every wound that I lose to shooting is a wound badly felt. But on the other hand, it's also keeping his shooting away from other targets. So the Spectral Hunters are not really my prime concern in this battle because they're also just exposable. They're not scoring. It would be nice if they could also mop up the Giselles, but they also already put a lot of pressure on my opponent this turn. So I think I'm in a good spot here. Then in the middle, my opponent is not able to fully dispose of my Phantomhost. So that means that he's stuck for another round, which is ideal for me. And in the combat against the skeletons, he does manage to kill off some skeletons, but he's not able to strike with his full unit. So we only crumble a little bit. And the Winged Reapers, they are just grinding slowly through the red at arms. It becomes my turn. I decide to charge in on the Vermin Demon with my Black Knights, which is actually a mistake. I should have gone for the Plague Disciples, as it would have been the flank. And I didn't really think about what would happen if the Black Knights charged in the Plague Disciples, but I think it would have been a slaughterfest, because I only get 2 hits, he only gets 2 attacks. He's light troops, so I get a charge in the flank. With some attacks, I am likely to break him. If I don't break him, it's kind of bad, but the Vermin Demon could come in. I have a champion I can challenge. I can still strike at the rest of his unit. I might even survive it, and the Vermin Demon is too valuable of a piece normally to go for charges where you clean up the rest. The reason why I went in on the Vermin Demon with my Black Knights was to just pin him in place one turn. Because I also charged with the Zombie Dragon against the Plague Pendulum unit in order to try and mop up the unit. I failed the charge on something like a 4. So basically this turn I'm giving away a unit of Black Knights, and that is definitely not what I had planned to do. The skeletons in the middle are just dishing it out. I raised back some skeletons. My opponent is able to remove the Phantomhosts from with the one remaining wound left. I managed to win this combat against his Plague Monks, I believe, but he manages to make the steadfast roll. We dish it out further with the Vermin Guard. Yeah, this is just a combat that, to my purposes, is gonna just last us as long as possible. So I would like to keep these Vermin Guard out of the fight as long as possible. So I'm basically waiting here for my Winged Reapers on the left to deal with the Red at Arms, so that they can reform, so that they can charge into the flank of the Vermin Guard at a later point. So they are large infantry. If I don't have any space, I can field them 1 wide and then reform them 1 wide, charge in. Then I get 8 attacks in the flank that hit him on 3+, that wound him on 2+. I get a stomp, so that should be enough to tilt the momentum towards my side. Also, he's gonna have to take a fear check. He might still fail it. You never know. My opponent's turn sees him locked in combat with most of his list. He does move around with his Plague Disciples, so I really missed the chance there with the Black Knights to charge in on the flank. And otherwise, yeah, he's just basically stuck in combat. So the rotary guns are trying to shoot at some targets that they can still harm. So the one on the left is shooting at my Phantomhost at long range. The Phantomhost is reduced by now to 1 base, but these guys are still sturdy enough to, even as the rotary guns shoot magical shots, to just endure the shots of them. On the right, the rotary gun does, I believe, 2 wounds to the Spectral Hunters, but 8 of these guys should still be enough to clean up a catapult. So I would say that generally it's going quite alright for me. I was still waiting for these pesky Ratted Arms to just break, to free up my Winged Reapers. But the next turn is probably going to be the turn where a lot of stuff is going to happen, as my Zombie Dragon will be able to get a charge off. The Black Knights will be able to charge on a rotary gun. The Spectral Hunters will be able to go into the Plague Catapult. So I have a lot of stuff going on. Ideally, I would like to break the Plague Pendulum. But the question is whether this is going to be possible or not. But we will see. The Winged Reapers, they munch through on the Ratted Arms, and the Ratted Arms happily stay where they are, even though they're only 1 rank deep now. I believe they still had the discipline of the Vermin Demon, and this is also where it shows that the discipline of a Vermin Demon is just immense for the army. So here I do make a mistake with my Zombie Dragon. I charge in on the Plague Pendulum, and I thought that I needed it to remove the ranks of the Plague Disciples first. So I'm striking. I'm gonna strike at the unit. I'm not in contact with the pendulum itself. And well, with Putrid Protection, probably it would have been a mistake to put it against the Plague Pendulum, but without it, or without the good armor save on the Plague Pendulum, I don't really know if it was a mistake to not put it in contact with it. Because, yeah, without the Plague Pendulum, the unit isn't that scary, and it loses a lot of ranks, but it is a bit of a gamble. Because if I am going to allocate all of my attacks against the Plague Pendulum and I don't remove it, then my opponent is going to go full grind on the skeletons. He's going to do probably more wounds than I'm going to do, and I'm going to take some wounds on my Zombie Dragon. And depending on what is going to happen, my Zombie Dragon might not even survive that. So that would be a risky road to go on. As you can see, my opponent is mopping up my skeletons big time with the Vermin Guards, and my Vermin Guard my skeletons are probably not going to survive this. Because he finally manages to fit in between the house. Yeah, and otherwise my opponent, he didn't really do a lot with the Vermin Demon this turn, and I was surprised by that. Also because I was planning on just getting the Vermin Demon with my Zombie Dragon. So had he not been locked in combat and stayed locked in combat, I would have charged into the Vermin Demon next turn. And what you see now is that I reformed the Zombie Dragon in order to shield myself from the Plague Disciples. The Plague Disciples, they were at 12-inch distance, so they had a charge on a 7, I believe, or an 11, so 7 or a 6. So the charge into the Zombie Dragon was pretty guaranteed. In my flank, he's gonna have the full unit striking at me if I turn my flank towards the Plague Pendulum. He's only gonna have 4 guys strike at me, so I only get 4 toxic hits. I only get 8 attacks after I have struck with the Vampire on top. The Vampire would have struck at the Plague Disciples just to try and lower their damage output. So I thought that the play to present my front to the Plague Disciples instead was the best play here. So I did that. And then my opponent failed to charge, so I was really happy about that. Playing a Zombie Dragon can be really exciting at times. I mean, I should have dealt with the Plague Disciples way earlier by just charging in Black Knights. And also maybe even I should have, even frontally at some point I should have charged in, just given him a unit of Black Knights. Because the objective was anyway already way in my favor. Even though at this point it's only like 3-2. Like I still have 3 scoring units left. My opponent still has 2 scoring units left. So it's actually way closer than I would have thought from the first turns. Then we have also still the business that happened with the Spectral Hunters and the Plague Catapult. So I charged in. I completely fluffed my dice with my, let me see, 8, 12 attacks or so. Hitting on 3+, wounding on 3+. I did 1 wound. Then the catapult struck back, and I don't believe it did anything, but then he's only losing by 1. He made his roll, and it was fine. And I was stuck there. The Vermin Demon of my opponent could charge in and could mop up the Spectral Hunters, basically. So Spectral Hunters, they're nice. They're nice against specific targets, but against these Vermin Swarm, it's not that useful. But against some other targets, they really shine. Like trolls, they have a good time against trolls. Because of the flaming attacks, because of the AP10, because of trolls not having any magical damage output. So in my turn, I finally managed to get my Winged Reapers out of the grind without too much damage, actually, because the Ratted Arms only in the end did 1 wound to them. The Winged Reapers, they proceed to charge the Vermin Guard in the flank. They manage to break them together with the help of the skeletons that provide the static combat res. And the Winged Reapers, they get to charge into the Plague Pendulum. So with the Plague Pendulum, with the Winged Reapers, with the Dragon, with the White King, I already put on a single wound on the Plague Pendulum the previous turn. I think I did focus a little bit too much on the unit, seeing that there's only 3 guys left. But in my thoughts, I had to commit to just also killing the unit just to keep my my combat res up. And this is where we are now. So both armies have been severely battered, and well, there's not a lot left on the table in terms of models. Yet still, my opponent has a Vermin Demon that has already 2 wounds on it from the first turn of the game, and since I've never been able to put any more wounds on it, I still have my Zombie Dragon at full health. I have a White King who had taken 2 wounds. My Necromancer is in full health, and I have still my Skeletons. One of them I might want to raise back a little to get my points back. And I still had a unit of Black Knights. The Winged Reapers, however, have a counter charge on the Vermin Demon, and I think this is my best bet to remove it from play. Possibly my opponent should have overrun there, but my Winged Reapers are able to get into the Vermin Demon. I walk away a little bit with my pieces in order to just keep them safe. I still want to buff my my Winged Reapers in combat, so I still have the reroll to hit, I believe, and I can still raise them back. I do raise 2 wounds back on the Winged Reapers, but in the end I don't manage to kill the Vermin Demon. I believe over 2 rounds of combat I still did 6 wounds to it, but my opponent saved 5 of those or 4 of those. So yeah, with that, it's the end of the battle, and it's a clear win for the Vampire Covenant, because I still have more scoring units. Well, I killed more scoring units than he did, and I still have quite a substantial amount of points left on the table, actually, like 22,500, whilst my opponent still only has a half-health Vermin Demon on the table. Thank you for watching, and I will see you the next time.